Hey Scott, how you doing? Ooh, can you hear me, Scott? Make sure. Hey, Scott, how about now?
Yep, yeah, that works for me. Yeah, I
There you go. Cool. Hey.
perfect. Yeah,
Oh my
probably
God.
was just for that. Got
So many ways.
distracted and then
Yeah.
too many people swinging by. So
Oh, got it. No worries. I don't know if so we have a pretty small group. I mean, you and I could sync up. I can kind of try to get you up to speed. I was trying to find some of the docs and stuff. Usually we have a couple other folks on here. And I'm not sure too. I saw something about, but I don't think any of our team, some kind of other OCP stuff going on this week. Um, but yeah, I think this is a good time anyway for us to sync a little bit, and I can
Mhm.
kind of get you up to speed. Have you already met with Shruti and stuff like that, or?
not yet, no.
Okay.
Um, so we've had a bit of, let me find with the last correspondence. So I
Yeah.
haven't met with Shruti yet, but
Okay.
um, had been working with Mark Danzi, and I know the OCP regional summit's going on right now in Portugal.
I think that's yeah. I don't. But yeah, again, I don't know if a few of our people were joining. I don't think so, but but
Yeah,
I wish I was there.
yeah. I was supposed to go, but we've had so much stuff going on that I actually had to back out simply because of how much work is going on now internally. So
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so you're at Google though, right? That's your day job?
that's correct. Yep.
Okay. What's your day job? What do you do there, and how does it kind of relate to OCP?
So I'm a mechanical engineer. I do basically any of our third party infrastructure. I help um, do basically complete a due diligence and ensure that the buildings and the facilities are going to meet the specifications from availability, redundancy, power, cooling, kind of everything from the utility to the rack, and then also the site.
Got
And
it.
so I do a lot of our basically I got engaged with OCP to help with standardization of multi-tenant facilities and kind of the base specifications, non-proprietary specifications for the facilities.
Got it. Okay, so like rack power delivery, backup power supply, mechanical sizing, everything kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and then part of the other thing that OCP had an interest in was trying to get standards in place for logistics requirements. So site truck access, what size the racks were going to be,
Yep.
what floor loading needed to be in place
Yep.
so that newer racks can be put in those halls. And so I've been helping them with that for about 2 years now.
Very cool. Okay. How long you been at Google?
I've been with them just under 7 years.
Okay. Been there for a while. Cool. Okay. And it seems like and I did actually last meeting, Jeff and I. So Jeff Otter is the other kind of like, he's basically like a co-lead in this. He's been doing a lot of stuff lately. He's with HPE as his day job. And then with OCP, he has a longer OCP tenure than I do. I've really only been engaged maybe about 8 or 9 months, something like that. He does a lot of stuff in and around redfish. I don't know if you're familiar with redfish.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't dove into it a ton, but I'm familiar with the term.
Got it. Yeah, so he may even chair like sort of one of the redfish work streams within OCP, and there's OCP profiles for redfish. So this is a really natural alignment for him, and he's been helping us get started, saying like, hey, yeah, let's kind of take it in the framework of since redfish is the manageability standard, we are principally looking to start with compute servers first. We can kind of use and say like, hey, here's the things in the profile that are sort of must-haves, and that's really where this work group has started, saying like, um, we have a kind of audacious end goal, but we're kind of starting ground up and saying, well, we want to standardize what we think a lot of people are already doing, and saying, hey, for an OCP compliant server, or eventually rack data center, everything, here's the power telemetry that needs to flow around. So we've kind of just started with the basis of a compute server, saying like, look, CPU, memory, fans, power supply, some basic expectations of like sampling and accuracy and location kind of details, and putting it within the framework of that OCP profile is sort of our initial just get it out there. And then eventually want to keep building to other components that go into the rack, uh, and be complementary to some of the other sustainability work groups. So There's, for instance, there's one on new data center metrics to sort of replace PUE. And so we're syncing back and forth with that work group trying to say like, hey, we should try to report the stuff that you need to go make your calculations, right? So we're trying to make sure we do that, and I think we will. And if not the very first release, probably the second. And then eventually, you know, we want to start with sort of this kind of bare metal data center basics. But the eventual end goal too is to eventually even have APIs and stuff so that end users, like, you know, one of the big industry challenges right now is, let's say I don't know, I had my own small business and I'm running, you know, some of Google servers to do some of my stuff on, right? And I'm like, hey, how much energy am I burning? You know, how much carbon intensity is this? How much of this compute is renewable or not, right? And to kind of get that level of detail out to the end user, there's not really a standardized thing, right? I mean, some cloud service providers, I know, have some tools and things, and you know, there's all this debate of how accurate they are, how accurate they need to be, and all that. But that's sort of the end goal, is that we would be able to standardize what the expectations are of passing stuff along, and even maybe describe how that would get passed along through, like I said, starting with Redfish and other telemetries, but then also going with APIs to get it out to the software layer. So high level, that's our kind of short and long-term goals. Where we're at right now, and I was trying to pull it up. I think this is the last link Jeff gave me. Some of my Git permissions and stuff are a little bougie, but I'm gonna put this into the chat there. That should be where Jeff has kind of published some of our initial stuff, and we're trying to get feedback. But like I said, it's pretty basic of like, we're going to start with compute server. We're going to say, here are the things that need to be reported and how, and just kind of get that out there for response, and then keep building from there. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah. That makes sense. Or any questions on that?
Yeah, that does make sense. And one of the things that, so I guess what we're looking at, what we had started working on through, I guess we started engaging Microsoft and Meta, was trying to get into more or less API visibility to like the base power systems and, you know, cooling systems, the building management, power management, those types of systems, and setting up a standard access system for it. That was then, you know, acceptable from a security standpoint. And our thought was, if we aligned with all the hyperscale companies at that point, we'd have a better shot at kind of pushing this out to the industry and saying, you know, to the multi-tenant providers, that basically this is the standard we expect. So I think that fits fairly well into.
Yeah, I think, you guys are maybe coming tops down, we're coming bottoms up. But if and by saying APIs, are you talking about within the data center operators, or actually stuff that's available to somebody who's a tenant on one of these servers?
Mostly to tenants. So what we've been looking at was basically, you know, if you were to go into a multi-tenant facility and say you had 5 megawatts of power, being able to get access to, you know, the building management system to look at temperatures, humidity, you know, potentially fan speeds, discharge air temps, things like that. And then also access to the power system, so we could be able to see, you know, when a generator is running, or when they're taking load off the UPS, or how much load's on the UPS, those types of things.
Yeah, whether you're 80% renewable generated right now or not, or something like that.
Yep.
Too. I think. Okay. And this is, so like you said, data center tenant, but not necessarily kind of quote the end-to-end application user, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the multi-tenant facilities, since they're somewhat hosted by a, you know, a provider, basically.
Yeah.
When you rent the space, you're really only given, like, the vendors tend to keep you bound into your hall, and they kind of use the hyperscalers against each other and say, well, we can't tell you that or this because it's proprietary, or there's other tenants, you know, especially when you look at power. They're, for whatever reason, and I'm sure I understand why, it's probably a liability concern, but they don't want to give out too much information, because then we can see when, you know, maybe they had a switching operation that was occurring and they didn't tell us they were supposed to be doing switching on that day. Those types of things can kind of bite them. So they usually try to keep as much information to themselves as they can. But when things go wrong, we need to be able to, look at the data, figure out what happened, or even troubleshoot. If we saw loads ramp for whatever reason, workloads ramp, then we can go and see how that impacted the data halls.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And what work group does this sort of fall under within OCP? I'm still, I mean, it's a pretty vast org now, but
so what we had been doing was, I mean, technically, so the OCP sub project that I'm a co-lead for is underneath the facilities or the infrastructure side. And since we're basically trying to get access to the building, we kind of kept it under the facilities track for that purpose. And then as we open, so the OCP Ready sub project that I work in is aimed at standard specs for buildings, and part of what we wanted to get into is basically stating that this is the bare minimum telemetry we expect from service providers, and if you want to comply, these are the points, or this is the visibility required. So that's kind of where we reside right now.
okay. Okay. And that draft that you sent is sort of like same, you're kind of same as us. You have a draft and you're trying to get it out there for feedback.
Yeah, and it's extremely rough at this point. We were actually aiming to present in Portugal this week, but some of the representatives from Microsoft ran into snags with legal, and so they weren't able to partake in some of it quickly, and so we ended up pushing it off. But our intent is to try to get a paper, or at least get the information to a point where we can present on it at the global summit in, I think it's October, in Santa Fe.
Okay. October. Oh, yeah. So many meetings. So let me see. October, Santa Fe is the next regional summit for OCP then?
Yeah, it should be. Let me double check here. Because the global summit takes place in California. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, I did go to that last year.
Let me see what the week is this year. So it looks like the global summit, they still have the 2023 summit dates on there. Okay, so the 2024 global summit's in San Jose,
Okay.
October 15th to 17th, 2024.
October. Wow, that's great. It's been, yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, it feels about right. It was like October when I was out there. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. So yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think. And we might need Jeff to kind of sync on this since he's pretty good. Do you guys use redfish profiles for any of your equipment, or is that all kind of below your stuff? I guess that's a natural overlap, especially the way we're being organized.
So let me just double check and make sure. So redfish is a possibility. I think this would it's probably a good application for it. We haven't got into the specifics of how we intend on collecting the information. When what I've done in the past is generally we use an MQTT broker. So I think it falls along the same kind of, I don't know. I don't get into some of the the REST interface and things like that. I haven't done a ton of that, so I'm a little bit not as well versed in that aspect of the connection. But what we end up doing is more or less the building management and the power management systems have a dedicated server with points that they would then make available to us, make them visible, and then at that point we could tie them into our hardware via like an MQTT broker or some sort of it would be a read-only situation, so we wouldn't control anything, and there wouldn't be any communication back and forth. It would only be one way.
Yep.
To keep everything air gapped.
Makes sense. Okay, got it. So sort of like there's, whatever, a couple servers at the end of the day for the whole data center that are getting pushed this by other entities.
Yep.
And then that, where and how that gets made available is sort of like the next step. Okay. And I think ours would kind of do the same thing, feed up, into that, whether from orchestration software or other hardware connections. So that probably is where we kind of a lot of this data aligns. So you may need be so that I don't know. I can, so the other thing is there's that other work group. So it's chaired by Sammy from Intel, that meets tomorrow morning, and I don't know if you care, but they're that data center metrics group that I said.
Okay.
Give me a quick sec. Let me pull up they're just part of the like open compute sustainability stuff. Let me see here, open compute. I think I can get to their page pretty quick too. Kind of a wiki. There we go. So let me see, carbon disclosure, carbon modeling. There it goes. Data center. Okay, I'll put this into the chat too. I don't think you necessarily have to make the rounds, but just want to give you other stuff because I think similar to us, like I said, these guys are looking to be able to quantify new data center metrics for efficiency. And if, I mean, they're mostly around energy efficiency. So if some of the things that like you're talking about feed in there, that might make sense, right? Like you said, from power generation units or things like that, because they're looking to like, again, improve on PUE, kind of comply with a lot of these emerging government standards on like, hey, how efficient are you? What's your utilization? All those kinds of things. And along the lines of like, how green is your energy at any given time? And it sounds like you're kind of coming at that angle of it. So,
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of what they would use for their reporting metrics would be something that would come out of kind of the points that we're looking to gather. So, and it depends on how granular you get, but in order to calculate like your water efficiencies, things like that, you need to know, blowdown rates, and like there's a whole lot of mechanical systems that you could end up tying into to be able to calculate those values fairly quickly and easily. So I think those work hand in hand fairly well.
Okay. And I guess, is your work group going to kind of solve that whole calculation? And then, like you said, it's just part of passing it along, or, yeah.
So yeah, so we had not looked at just yet how to, calculate, say, like a PUE for a multi-tenant facility with multiple different, tenants. What we had primarily been doing just now to get kind of started is to standardize how we would get access to those points and not have security breaches. And then that would be our starting point. At some point down the road, we do want to tie this into sustainability, and how we can, because like in the EU, they're starting to require certain reporting metrics on, generator runtime, carbon emissions, what your water, excuse me, what your water utilization is. All of that's going to be a requirement now in the EU, even if you're a tenant within a multi-tenant facility and you're not the owner. So I see that we'll have to do that in the future. So it'll just be kind of part of normal operation.
Okay. Okay, cool. That makes sense. All right. So I think, I don't know. I think that it makes sense to me. I think maybe we all just kind of keep talking. Would you imagine, I mean, I guess, like I said, probably as we sync with Jeff, I think probably the next steps here, besides us all just kind of staying in contact, is we can, maybe you might want to sync with Sammy, reach out to him for their work group, and they meet. Well, I think they usually meet Fridays at like 8 or 9, but or 9 a.m. Pacific. Sorry, are you West Coast? Where are you at?
I'm actually in the central region, so I'm on central time zone.
Okay, so they're meeting at 9 a.m. Pacific tomorrow, but I thought I might have saw something from him that he's canceling because of this regional summit conflict. So, but you can jump onto that mailing list if you want, or just do like a one-on-one with him. And then the other thing is, I think see if you can. I'll double check and see if you can get to that our draft thing. Let me. I can even share here. Let me see if I can show. Let me see if I can get to it. I kind of lost track of where it was at. Just a lot better at that. But let me share the screen here. Should be this one. So I think this is where he pulled it, and it looks like there's some other create OCP sustainability profile. Yeah, so this is Jeff's. And this is earlier one, added use case documentation. So let me look if this pulls up the, yeah, this is kind of like, I think it has to get kind of built, right? But this is where we're starting to document like the use cases for this profile. We're kind of calling a sustainability profile, and then calling out sort of like, you know, what are the things that you need to do, like the chassis data, the power, you know, we want to report both power and energy. So you can kind of scan through this, or if you're adept at all the markdown stuff, kind of build it and look at it in the other forms. I'm not sure if it also in here splits out the other formats. And it looks like we're starting to get a little bit of feedback from a couple other people too. So where is, I don't know if this will display it. I had some issues with even all my Git accounts for a little while, so I'm barely even able to getting this stuff back online. But yeah, okay. But yeah, so you have this link, and I don't know, let me know. I don't think you need any access. It should just be all open. Our work group is like completely open. So if you want to browse to that and see if that makes sense. And then we can take this up again next week too. I'm good to meet next week. I haven't heard anything issues from Jeff, so we'll do another sync on this next week, and we can talk about like, yeah, if there's, you know, anything we might want to add into, we can kind of take that up from here. And if you guys do play in that redfish space or want to, we could kind of fold you guys in under like our next phase of like other equipment, right? Like non-compute server stuff. Because eventually we're going to need like, you know, networking stuff or like backup power supply efficiency, right? Like, or cooling. And, you know, so I think some of the things you called out, if, you know, we can certainly kind of extend this structure a little bit for those type of equipment. Seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I'm good with folding them in. And then the whole API stuff, well, that's another phase, but at least getting it into this redfish, JSON, and profile stuff, I think is straightforward. Cool.
Perfect.
All right, cool. We'll do that. We'll good meeting you, Scott. We'll sync up next week, and hopefully Jeff and a couple of the others. So we have Jeff from Intel, Jeff from HPE, Dev from Intel, Edgar, who also works at Intel, and then Shruti from Microsoft calls in from time to time. And then we've got a couple others that have kind of come and gone, but those are kind of the principals that have we're trying to get stuff out. But like I said, Jeff's been doing quite a bit, pulling a lot of weight.
Yeah. No,
cool.
I think that's
All
great.
right. We'll sync back up again next week. It was great meeting you.
Yep. Nice meeting you as well.
Okay. Take care, Scott.
Yep. You too.
Okay. Bye.